Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Welcome back, guys. Today is Wednesday. We're doing a movie review this time because that is what Lori Richins, our guest, who's going to be on Friday, talking about her story, requested. She felt that this movie, as well as another movie called Bellow, which you can find both on Amazon or I think one is on Netflix as well. But definitely go check them out. She feels that this is a good representation of kind of some of the things that she's gone through in her life and how she's been able to change. As we talked about on Monday, the weak link, right? This old traditions or old legacy, bringing in a new legacy. She feels that she's been able to change. And some of the parts of the legacy that she grew up with that she didn't want, she wanted to change, and she's been able to do that. And so we may actually be able to hear a little bit from her son as well and see how that change is taking place and how his life is now different than her life was growing up. So that's going to be exciting. Please tune in for that. I know it's going to be worth your time. And I'm super excited. Turns out, funny story about connection. She actually has known my family since before I was born. It's funny how many people, as you become more present in social media and on podcasts and different things, how many people will come out and be like, hey, I knew your parents, I knew your family before you were even here. I love what you've turned into, right? I think it's a cool experience for me to really have that connection to my family. And since this whole week is talking about family and the connections and the legacies and what we have become through our family name, it fits really perfect. And it's actually ironic that I'm going to have somebody on who knows my family as well, or has known my family throughout before I was even here on this planet, which is exciting. Anyways, this movie is October Baby, as I mentioned, and I'm going to give you just a quick outline of it because I think it's important to have a basic concept of why this movie was important and I'm going to share what I got out of it and some experiences from my life, things that I've learned that this movie highlights well for me as far as concepts, mentalities, processes of forgiveness, processes of changing your perspective, things like that. So the idea of the movie is that this woman who's in college, she has some health difficulties and she doesn't know where they're coming from. And she's seeing a psychiatrist, she's seeing doctors. And finally, the doctors say, hey, look, this is actually something that came from your childhood because you were a failed abortion, right? You were a failed abortion. They tried to abort you at like 28 weeks and failed. And that's not the narrative that her family had told her. The narrative that her family had told her was that she was their daughter, she was an only child, and that was who she was. Well, when this all comes out, we find out in the movie that she actually was adopted, that she had a brother. So her and her brother both were adopted, and that her parents, the people who she knows as mom and dad, they actually had adopted them at basically right after birth. And so that's all she knows, but really she was a failed abortion. Now, as a result of that, she had some medical difficulties due to the process of how they had tried to abort her. Well, this leaves her very, very lost and not feeling like she has an identity. This came right out of left field. She initially has a lot of feelings of anger, feelings of mistrust. She doesn't feel like she can trust her mom or her dad, so she's pretty upset with them. She just doesn't really have a lot of understanding. Now, from a child's perspective, having gone through certain experiences in my own life, by no stretch is it as traumatic as that, in my opinion, but having gone through experiences in my own life, there is a point as a child where we're pretty judgmental of the people around us and of the situation, just because we don't really have the perspective of what our parents were dealing with or what the people that we love and who care about us were really dealing with when they made the decisions that they made. Whether they were right or wrong decisions, that's pretty much irrelevant in my opinion. What is important is, can we even comprehend the state of mind that they must have been in while trying to make this decision? And that is what I think is so valuable and so important to recognize, is what is this position that they were in. So she lost her identity. Then she goes out to search for identity, as I think most people would. And in my case, I would say you must do eventually. You need to identify who you are. You need to identify your identity. And once you are in that position of identity and you know what you are, you know who you are, you know what your morals, your values, all those things are, that's when you're actually able to have a relationship with somebody. Up until this point, she was struggling with connecting. She had a bunch of people that she liked, but not really getting anywhere with them because she wasn't able to be vulnerable because she didn't know who she was really. And so this came to a head when she had to learn who she was and go back and chase down her identity, dig up some things that were painful. She went and met her birth mom, and her birth mom basically just denied that it even happened. And there's a bunch of things that along the journey, she was gaining perspective of what was actually going on. She talked to nurses that were there during the abortion, during the birth. She talked to police officers who lived in the town and knew people knew about the event. So she went and gained greater perspective from all these different angles. It's still slightly perturbed or upset a little bit, but as she really gained this perspective and allowed herself to come back to her identity before she found out and her identity after she found out, they're not that much different. The difference is the scope of understanding and the perspective. She had an identity, lost her identity because she found out that something was different in her life. And then as a result, she went and discovered things. And then she found out that this is still a lot of her identity, but there is this other component to her identity that now she is able to experience and find greater love and happiness and fulfillment in and through. And so one of the major lessons I found from the movie was that the ability to have perspective enables us to have love, greater openness with others, vulnerability. And as a result, we're actually able to create unity with not just our family, but those around us. And that is a huge, huge principle that it just really gets overlooked. People in our society, we're scared of being vulnerable. I was just listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were talking about how in conversation, we as a society are more divided than ever. We all have an opinion about something, even if it's really dumb. Like, let's say it's the spray can Cool Whip versus the Cool Whip brand, right? I'm a Cool Whip brand type guy. I can get into the texture, the taste, all the reasons why I don't like other brands of Cool Whip, right? That's something super trivial, but the perspective or the point is, I have an opinion about something that's so trivial, and I'd be willing to argue my opinion about that because for some reason it's important to me, right? And we all have little things like that in our lives. Basically, we've become very divided as a society because we're unwilling to listen to somebody else's other perspective and try and gain perspective on why somebody might be different than us. And then furthermore, accept them for being different and accept them that they are different and say, hey, that's great. Thank you for bringing variety to my life and to those around us. Okay. So perspective is key, especially when dealing with our family. Because I'm going to share I'm not going to get too specific today, but there was trauma that I faced in my childhood growing up. I was the 7th of 11 kids. I've mentioned that many times. And due to just really a lack of attention, I felt like I wasn't cared about, wasn't loved, just kind of swept under the rug a lot of the times, or that was my perception of my childhood for a long time in my life. And as I got older, I actually had blanked out about 8 years of my childhood just because it was too painful to deal with. I didn't want to have to dig through and try and mentally and emotionally handle the verbal abuse, the physical abuse, the neglect, all those different things. And because of that, I had just blanked it out. So then when people would say, well, what was your childhood like? I was like, I don't know. I didn't have a childhood. I started working full-time when I was 11. I've enjoyed associating with adults. I've enjoyed working with adults. And as far as I know, I've just been an adult since I was 11 years old. I've participated in adult activities. I've gone to adult classes. I've done as much as I can to live an adult lifestyle because being an adult and in control was more comforting to me than processing a situation that I was out of control in. And that process comes up in many areas of our lives, not just mine. And it's not just if you have a traumatic experience in your childhood, that can come up in so many different areas. So just be aware of that. And I would say question, what areas are you choosing to forget about your childhood? What areas are you not willing to deal with. Maybe it was just yesterday. Maybe you had a big argument with your spouse over money, or how you're going to treat your kids, or how you're going to parent, or what you're going to have for dinner, whatever it is. And rather than like recapping that, processing it with your spouse and really going into the details of the opinions and making sure that you guys can get back on the same page, rather than doing any of that, you guys just ignore it. You're like, oh, I'm so glad yesterday was over. We're in today, and we're just going to go forward in happiness, and we're just going to forget that argument happened. That is, in my opinion, one of the worst things you can do in a relationship, is just sweep stuff under the rug. Because eventually, if you sweep stuff under the rug long enough, you're going to have a massive mound of dirt in your living room, under the rug, and your carpet's not going to be level anymore. You're going to be tripping over all the time, and it just compounds the problem. Pretty soon you've got a mountain in your house. There's no room for you or your spouse, and you both have to leave, which is an analogy for separation or some worse things. And so what we want to do is avoid anything like that. And especially in family relationships, we've got to learn to heal from these traumas. My ability to go through and heal from my trauma and my childhood enables me to really be vulnerable with people, really open up and actually connect with those around me and feel greater love and compassion for them. So how did I do that? Because this is an important thing. People have these issues, and because they got in an argument with their spouse, they don't feel like they have the language or the capacity to really explain or share with their spouse, or have a conversation that's not going to turn back into another argument, then they just will ignore the situation because it's safer than actually having the conversation. For me, I went and worked with a therapist. I worked with a coach, and in a controlled environment, I went and started unpacking all of these 8 years. Now, a lot of it I had forgotten intentionally. I say intentionally. I blanked it out because it was so traumatic, as a lot of trauma survivors do. They just try and blank it out. Well, for me, I went and got pictures of my childhood. So I have albums and albums of pictures of my childhood from all different ages, from when I was a baby up until when I was about, I would say 14, 15 years old. And these pictures enabled me to go back to some of these experiences and really remember what was going on in my life. How was I being treated? How was I feeling? What was my relationships with my parents, my brothers, my sisters? How was that all happening? And then from those experiences, I had to really pull them apart with my therapist and explain my whole entire perspective, right? I was explaining my experience. Now, each person has their own unique experiences, and we don't want to, at any point in time, neglect or discredit your experience. That is not what we're trying to do here. What we are trying to do is let you understand that your experience is your experience, and if you choose to take a different experience out of that event, then you may be able to live in a much more fulfilled, happy state of being. And that's the goal, is go in, let you experience that experience, but then say, okay, what if we reframe the experience? What if we reframed our perspective of this experience? And so that's what my therapist and my coach helped me accomplish with all these events. So we went and we said, okay, well, here was a parenting example. What was really great about this? What was good about this? What was the bad? What was the ugly? What was just like outright should have never happened to you, Sam? What is a healthy way to parent a child? What is a not healthy way to parent a child? What is a healthy way to treat your brothers and sisters? What is a not healthy way to treat your brothers and sisters? What is a healthy, we'll call it a healthy addiction? What is an unhealthy addiction? Addiction, I don't think, is bad. It's things that you can't live without. Water, you can't live without it. Food, you can't live without it. In my case, exercise, can't live without it. There's certain things that it's okay to be addicted to, that you recognize you cannot live without these, and you should be very, very focused on them in your life. Not all addiction is bad. It's when these addictions are taking over your life and you're not able to function positively in society, or you don't feel great about yourself with this addiction. That's when I would say it's entering the not good space. But anyways, so we went through and we dug through all of my 8 years of past. We made sure that I was in a position that I could handle the conversation. By the time I was done with my therapist, I wouldn't say that I was completely healed or taken care of out of these experiences. But what it did do is it gave me greater perspective. It gave me the ability then to have compassion, to go in and understand, okay, when this was happening in my life, what was the surrounding things? What were my brothers and sisters doing? What were my parents doing? What was the person at church doing? What was the person at the store doing? What was the police officer doing? What was, right? Understanding their perspective, throwing a potential perspective in there of them, and then reframing my perspective of the event based on applying more positive motives to those around me. And as I was able to do that, I was then able to have compassion and think, wow, the stress, for my parents. I don't know how my parents did it, honestly. Like I say, I'm the 7th of 11. I have one kid, another one that should come this month. I cannot imagine having 11 children. I just can't imagine it. And I think anything that happens when you have that many kids, you pretty much get a get out of jail free card. Hopefully your kids understand later, like I've come to understand, because that in and of itself is a major stress for many, many people. Some people, they can have as many kids as they want and it doesn't stress them out at all. And that's fantastic. But I would say most people that I've met, I don't think they'd be able to handle having 11 children, especially with very low income and some different beliefs that we grew up with in our family, which are neither good or bad. I just think they were different from the status quo. And so having that compassion for my family has given me a lot of peace. And actually, at this point, I would say it's given me a lot of pride in being a Knickerbocker, being somebody who carries that name and is able to go forth and say, look, yes, all of these things happened in my life, but that doesn't define me in a negative way. I would say it does define me in a positive way. I allow those experiences, the new perspective, the new lenses that I'm looking at my past through, I'm allowing that to actually define me. And I love that. I love letting those things define me in a positive light that gives me strength and power to go forward and say, hey, look, I know these people cared about me. I know that they really wanted me to succeed. I know that I'm going to accomplish great things because I already have accomplished great things. I've already made it through some difficult things. Now in this movie, October Baby, at the very end, it's very close to the very end, her father, who at the beginning of the movie was saying, hey, this boy's bad for you. You don't need him in your life. He was just protecting himself. When he was making these decisions about what to share with his daughter and what not to share with his daughter about the history, he was just protecting himself. He didn't know how to confront the past, and he didn't want to see his daughter in pain. He just wanted her to be happy. And so he was trying to selectively give information to her that was going to produce the most happiness. Sometimes in our life, we do that. We try and selectively give information to those around us as to not rock the boat, not cause too much anxiety or anger in a situation. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about, are you going to revisit that conversation, that argument you had, and discuss it in a more kind tones and really unpack the situation. And I think you are always better off being honest up front and sharing your opinion, recognizing both of you guys have opinions. They're not facts. They're not truth necessarily. They are your honest opinion about the situation. Now, if you understand that it's just an opinion, that removes a lot of the animosity that might come with that. And it enables a discussion of, okay, so what you're saying is you're seeing this experience in this situation. See, I experienced something different. When this happened, I experienced it this way. How can we come together with a greater level of understanding towards an experience and with greater love and unity? And you're always going to be better off being truthful with somebody and not sweeping it under the rug. If you keep sweeping things under the rug thinking, oh, I can deal with that this time, I can deal with that this time, it's not that bad, it's not that bad, eventually it's going to be bad enough that you're going to blow up, and that spouse, that child, that parent, whatever, they don't know that they've been irritating you this whole time because you never told them. So they don't have the opportunity even to honor your wishes because they don't know what your wishes are. They don't know what your expectations are. And that comes from you finding your identity. Once you identify who you want to be and you identify your identity, then you're actually able to go to all these people and say, hey, this is who I am. This is how I need to be communicated to. This is kind of how I view the world. If you would be willing to do your best, obviously I'm not going to hold this against you because I understand that I'm a flawed being and you could also be flawed, right? I'm not going to hold it against you if you fail at communicating to me this way, but I would prefer communication coming this way. Having these conversations, I think like this, whatever the case may be, that's going to add so much depth to your relationship. By the end of the movie, the dad is sitting there apologizing to his daughter, and his daughter, with this new perspective, this newfound understanding of the whole situation, says, Dad, it's okay. I love you. I understand what happened. And it's really okay. And that was kind of the culmination of just an overwhelming sense of love. And then the dad calls the boyfriend guy and says, hey, I think you should call my daughter because she really likes you, right? So this previous situation where he was trying to push this guy away, he's now inviting him into their life because he recognizes that young man was the one who facilitated giving him and his daughter a better relationship and opening his daughter's eyes and allowing her to feel all of the feelings, positive and negative. And I think that's one of the best gifts you can give a loved one, is allowing them to feel the feelings that they need to feel. Whether or not you think they should feel them, it's important to allow them to feel them. And that is what I would say my testimony is. That's what I know with all of my heart. And I do my best to let other people feel how I'm feeling, or at least share my feelings with them. So there's no misconception. There's no wondering, I wonder what Sam thinks of me right now. Look, if you want to know what I think of you, you can ask me. If it's going to be something that's not super positive, I'll generally ask you how much you actually want to know, because I like to just be honest and upfront with people. I don't like people walking on eggshells wondering what I'm thinking about them. And that's just me. So I know that that's what you're working with if you ever come in contact with me. But on the plus side, most of what I think about people is super positive, because I've been in their shoes. And so the ability to have compassion for them enables me to just really just think and apply the best possible motives to these individuals. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, please like, comment, and share on the Facebook video. This is going to be on podcast as well. If you take a snapshot of you listen to this podcast and post it on social media, post it on your Instagram lives, post it on your Instagram stories, Facebook stories, whatever it is, give me a shout out and I will give you a shout out here. If you have something that you feel is valuable, let me know. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, I'd love to interview you and share your story and share how this could apply to building your legacy. These small things, it's the small mentalities that I believe really fuel your legacy. We will eventually get into some more tangibles like finances, maybe health, different things like that. But in my experience, the people who I want to model my legacy after, most of what they're doing, most of who they are, it actually starts up in the mind. And so that's really what I'm trying to get across here, is how can we help you shape your mindset to be in a proper perspective to reach your legacy, whatever that meaningful legacy is, and however you want to share that with the world. I'm in support of, I'm here for you. I want to help you. So please like, comment, and share. And then don't miss out on this Friday's episode with Lori Richens. It's going to be phenomenal. She's actually coming in-house, which I'm super pumped about. And she's going to get to share her story. I've already read some of her story, and it is incredible. So it's going to apply very nicely to both Monday and Wednesday's podcast. And then Friday is just going to be kind of the culmination and a lot of personal experience of these topics and these principles that we've been talking about. So definitely tune in for that, and feel free to share this with other friends and family that you think could really benefit from it. Thanks much. Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.